It's 12 noon on this Thursday, December, whatever the heck day this is, night 18th. And welcome to my very first ever trial test episode of a webinar. And I'm using Webinar Jam, and for some reason I have no control because my control panel has not decided to show up. But that being said, we're still going to get this show on, and we're going to get some stuff done today and try to work on developing a podcast, not the end all be all of marketing strategy in Twitter or with podcast. But what I will say is that through the advice and through the consent sometimes of some of my friends, I have been able to see some remarkable growth in my podcast. I started my podcast on December the 9th without even an iTunes feed. iTunes had not yet developed or pushed my podcast onto their store until a day and a half later. So with about 36 hours of no iTunes support, in the first week, we had 1,000 downloads, over 1,000, close to 1,200 downloads in the first week, because we're talking about a week and 2 days out. In the first week, we have now, 2 days ago, was below 250 in one category and below 300 and below 500. I'm in the top 20. I'm in the top 5 in 2 categories. So that's pretty amazing to see the growth that's happened. And I will tell you, it has been almost exclusively with Twitter podcasting, sending out my podcast. So it's been almost exclusively with Twitter marketing. And so I was discussing on Podcasters Paradise Facebook page last Sunday, as I was trying to come up with my strategy, was discussing with another podcaster about how Twitter how I have noticed and how I've been talking to podcasters over the last few months through my business show notes guy about how they are managing their Twitter marketing and which social media is actually doing them the best. And so now we're going to look at this concept of using Twitter as your podcasting platform, marketing platform. And let me see, I'll get this up. There we go. I think it's up. So now we're going to go through this presentation, and this is in its very basic and generic state. This is something that I've not yet come up with in its fully beautiful graphical form. Is in plain black and white right now. It's just the outline. So first we need to understand what social marketing is. The word social, it means something. It's not just sitting there in front of the word marketing. It means something. And what it means is, to be social in your marketing, you have to have some social interaction with your audience. Your audience expects that interaction. They're looking for it. That's why they're not looking for television and radio and other places for their marketing messages. They want to interact. They want their voice to be heard. So listen, people, then don't be social. Be a hermit for the rest of your life. Stay hidden behind the cloak, whatever you need to do, but don't interact. Don't be on social. If you're going to be on social marketing, be willing to interact. Look, there's a reason. I've worked in all of these. I've worked in radio and television and newspaper, a little bit in magazine, not much, but I've worked in all of these mediums. There's a reason why these guys ruled the airwaves, ruled the marketing landscape for so many years. It's because they reached a large mass audience. But the problem is that it's all one-way marketing, and it's lost its appeal mainly because of that one weakness. It's one way. There's no way for the audience to respond back. That thing that was once considered the strength of traditional marketing is now its major weakness. It's one way. There's no two, like I said earlier. Now we have new media marketing, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or other social media, or whether it be online or offline. We have a lot of ways for new media marketing to still be one-to-many. It's still mass marketing, but it's also one-to-one. In Twitter, you have direct messages. In Facebook, you have Facebook messages. In email, you can send out a mass email, but you always have that platform for a reply from those who read it. So in new media marketing, it's one-to-one and one-to-many at the same time. And the great thing is it's one-to-one both directions. And so rule number one is we have to respond. Andy Stanley, a great pastor and leader, in his leadership podcast that comes out once a month, you've got time to listen to it, said in one of his episodes, do for one what you wish you could do for the many. Now, he's a pastor of a very large church. He understands how to reach out to as many people as he would truly like to be able to. But he's learned both the principle that if you do for one what you wish you could for many, then those who are in need of that touch understand that you're doing what you can, and that you can send that information to other people. Okay, thank you for all the messages on Facebook. I'll have to respond to them later, won't I? Anyway, so you need to do for one what you wish you could do for me. That is a great principle to follow. So understand, if you're just reaching out, if people see you reaching out, then they're thinking, well, my time will come. So just let them be patient. Rule number two is to strategize. So rule number one was to respond. Rule number two is strategize. And that's what we're going to be spending the bulk of this hour talking about. And that is, how do we strategize? A strategy to do that. We need to pick a platform. You need a strategy to do that. You need to build that platform out. You need a strategy to do that. And then you need to master that platform before you add another section of the platform. We're just going to talk about Twitter today. That's all we are talking about is Twitter. Because in dozens of discussions with dozens of podcasters, the overwhelming response has been that Twitter is their most responsive platform. It drives clicks, it drives listens, and it drives visits to both iTunes and to their website. And so for that reason today, we're going to look at using Twitter. So we must strategize how we will use Twitter to grow our audience. And that's what this webinar is about today. You need to know a little bit about Twitter, and I could go through, and I've got a little bit of the history of Twitter for a later presentation, but I'm not going to deal with that. But the most common comment, the most common post I can find is that the lifespan of a Twitter is about 18 minutes. Now, that's shorter than the lifespan of a fruit fly. And I've been quoted as joking about Twitter that your tweet has the lifespan of a fruit fly. And because it has what I consider the lifespan of a fruit fly, we need to understand that analogy. So Orkin over here, excuse me, on their website has a page called Lifespan of Fruit Fly. And this is what it says about a fruit fly. The average lifespan of a fruit fly adult in optimal temperatures is 40 to 50 days. Female fruit flies are capable of mating and laying several batches of eggs in that time, allowing the fruit fly population in a home to multiply quickly. The fly is heavily influenced by temperature. Now, one of the articles I read said that female fruit flies are able to lay eggs, have sex and lay eggs the first day of their life. I mean, they only have 50 days. They got to get busy quick. So we learned some lessons from the fruit fly. The first lesson is get busy. The second lesson is multiply. The third is be fruitful. And the fourth is know the temperature of your audience. So let's get busy. We need to understand that we have to be busy with our Twitter strategy. First, we need to tweet around the clock. Now, I know you're going to say, I'm not staying up all night to send tweets out. I understand that. We're going to work on that. Second, we need to tweet multiple times per hour. You don't have time to do that in your life and job. So we're going to work on doing that as well. Thirdly, give value to your audience. And fourth, then ask them to act. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the strategy and built out. So we'll do the best we can as we're doing that. So first, tweet around the clock and then multiple times per hour. When I do this presentation with my friend Darren Bentley, Darren is going to do a presentation of Social Oomph. He's going to let you understand how to use a great platform called Social Oomph. I'm looking and studying another package called Manage Flitter. And there's some others that you can use. I've used Hootsuite. I've used Buffer App and some others. But this is the one we're going to focus on for this presentation on Friday. And that is Social Oomph. So Darren will give right now at this point a presentation on how to tweet around the clock and how to tweet multiple times an hour effectively using the website socialoomph.com. Then we need to give value to that. And then after that, we need to multiply. And here's what I mean by multiplying. Find content to tweet that is retweetable. Why? Because as other people retweet your content, then those things will be picked up by others and spread further and further and further out away from you in the Twitter sphere. So find content to tweet that is retweetable. Now look up here at the Nick Pavlidis. This is Nick Pavlidis, who's one of my clients at Show Notes Guy. He's doing a new podcast called Confessions of a Terrible Husband. It is an awesome podcast. Forget the show notes. The podcast is great. And I wrote some tweets for him as part of the social media kit for episode number 2, if I'm not mistaken, in which he interviewed the CEO of Questions. I wrote behind the question. And asking better questions can save your marriage. And then I added the Twitter accounts for A Bad Husband. That's the account for the podcast. Then I added some hashtags here: marriage, romance, and husband. And according to some of my social media tools, those were 3 very strong tweet hashtags. And then this one got picked up. This is something that I picked up off of Buffer App and was able to find a great article called The Effect of Continuous Scroll on News Site Engagement. If you need to build and grow engagement on your website, you're looking for information like this. And so I sent the link. Then I also gave it the hashtag design, blog, and web design. And Payboard picked that up and retweeted that tweet. And an article that I picked up from him, and I even tagged him in it, The Secret to Increasing Your Twitter Followers, a great article. Find it on my Twitter feed and go to this link and read what AJ has written about how to increase your Twitter followers. Some of the information you're hearing here today is included in that as well, because that's where I got it. Next, in multiplying, we need to build a list of retweetables. How do we do that? Well, we follow a lot of Twitter accounts, and we need to build lists. There's that new function and feature in Twitter called lists. And so you need to build a number of lists of Twitter accounts you follow and find great content from. Then you want to retweet their stuff and give them credit for it if they found it. And then you also want to find articles or podcasts that they've written out there on the web and be able to build those into your list of possible tweets as well. And it might help if I click the right screen. There we go. Now, be fruitful. We need to follow our audience. Look, You can follow anybody, and I understand that. And you can build a huge list of followers by following a lot of different people. But that's not going to help you, because the people you want to meet through your Twitter audience is the people you want to serve, the people you desire to have in your audience. So one of the tools I use for that is Manage Flitter. There's a paid and a free account. And with Manage Flitter, you can find people who are in your niche. For instance, in my niche, I would look for podcasters, people like you who are listening and paying attention. And then I will follow them. You can follow them in batches on manageflitter.com. So find the people in your niche. They will help you find it on Manage Flitter, and then follow them. They'll let you do that in batch. And then find what they are tweeting, retweeting, and favoriting. Articles and other information along those lines that you can then tweet out. Now, I've talked a lot about finding stuff to tweet out to serve your audience. And that's very, very, very important, because it is part of the strategy. And here's the strategy. The strategy is to have about 5 bins of tweetables, 5 bins of things you can send out, and then to send out multiple tweets per hour. Remember, the lifespan of a fruit fly is about 50 days, and the lifespan of a tweet is about 18 minutes. So if you're sending out one about 20 minutes, then you're going to send out at least 3. I suggest, however, that you send between 5 and 7 tweets per hour. And here's what I suggest. I suggest that first you have a bin of tweets that promotes podcasts that are about 6 or more weeks old. Content that people will get a benefit from, but content that you want them to go back to every once in a while. And I say 1 an hour. Actually, it's about 1 every other hour. Secondly, you want podcasts that are between 1 and 6 weeks old. And if you were in New and Noteworthy for the entire period of time that you're in New and Noteworthy, let me suggest strongly, because I started this a day or 2 ago and went from, like I said earlier, 500 and below in one category all the way up to at least the top 20 in a matter of 2 days. So let me just strongly encourage you, if you are in New and Noteworthy, every link in this category right here, the podcast 1 to 6 weeks old, needs to be to iTunes. Get the link to that individual episode and put it in the link on your Twitter. Because if you're in New and Noteworthy, Apple wants to know that people are interacting with your content. They want them listening. They want them playing it back. They also want them rating and reviewing, preferably reviewing and rating. So they're looking for those. They want to see that the audience is interacting, that they're supporting what you're doing. So send the links out on your Twitter feed to your iTunes only if you're a new and Noteworthy. Now, the great thing about that is you can also later on split this up a little bit and send them after 6 weeks old, or after you get out of New and Noteworthy. You can send them to direct links to Libsyn. So it'll play in Twitter. You can send them the links to Spreaker or to Stitcher and to iTunes and mix it all up. But while you're in New and Noteworthy, you want to make sure that this category specifically and totally to iTunes. Now, but you look, excuse me, if you look, I'm only talking about 1 podcast tweet an hour, 1/2 of a podcast tweet per hour, or 1 every other hour for your older content. And so that's not a whole lot of content to be tweeting. So how do you get to the 5 to 7 tweets per hour, Philip, you may ask? Well, that's through this curated content. You're going out there, you're finding information your audience wants, needs, desires, or thinks they have a need for, and you send it out there. I'm dealing with podcasters. So I'm sending out information about blogs. I'm sending out information about inbound marketing. I'm sending out information about web design, all sorts of different things that a podcaster would need to improve developing and growing their audience. All of that stuff goes in to pull out of that bin when you need it, and you post all that stuff on Twitter through Social Loop or Managed Flitter or Edgar or whatever you're using. So there's now there's 4, 6, 7 tweets in 2 hours. So now we got another batch of tweets we've got to pull out of so we can get to the 5 to 7 per hour. And that is, first, I should have put these backwards. First, your friend stuff. And that is things that friends of yours, things that other podcasters of yours have posted that is of benefit to your audience. You're not the originator of all cool content for your audience. Admit it, be willing to work with it, and go on. And so find their stuff and do them the honor of sharing their information. And they'll share the information that you post as well. So it's going to be commensurate what you do. And there may be people who just take advantage and don't ever tweet anything you send out. That's okay. It'll come back. So just tweet your friends' stuff. Find stuff that they have put out that matches the needs of your audience and tweet it out. And I suggest 1 an hour. And then finally, any offers or calls to action that you have on your website. It could be affiliate links. It could be offer to purchase a product you've developed, whatever it is. And you want to send about 1 of those out an hour. I actually suggest that you send those the hour that you don't send the 6+ week old podcast. So now you've got this one every other hour and this one every other hour. And so you're alternating those. So 2, 3, 4, and then 5. These 2 alternating for 5. So there's your strategy for sending out 5. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, that means you've got to build some content. Consulting and coaching for his podcast. He's doing it's Phillip Havens. His bow hunting freedom podcast is growing, and he started using this strategy. His Twitter interaction has gone through the roof. His podcast downloads have gone 4 to 10 times per day, depending on how he's applying this strategy. So I'm telling you, it can work. I know it can work. I've got evidence on my ranking on iTunes that it works. I've got evidence in the first week of my podcast on downloads that it works. So you can use this strategy and it will grow your audience. Now, like I said, I can't see my webinar jam control panel right now. If I could, then I would offer a time for question and answer. But let me go back to one more point. I've got to find it. Give me just 1 second. Here we go, right here. The last point is to know the temperature of your audience. And here's how you know the temperature of your audience. Remember, what Orkin said about the fruit fly is the lifespan of the fruit fly is heavily influenced by temperature. And so here's my point. Here's how you know the temperature of your audience. Are they responding? Are they retweeting? Are they asking questions? Are they sending you tweets and direct messages? Are they reacting and interacting to the messages you're sending out? If they're not, then their temperature is cold. The more response you get from them, the more response you'll be able to give back to them. And then the other part of that is to go follow, look at their Twitter feed, see what they're posting, and maybe you can respond to that as well. And as you do that, you will learn the lesson of social media. It means something. You have to have social interaction. So there's my strategy for tweeting with podcasters. And I hope you've learned something from that. And if you haven't, then contact me and ask me questions. You can contact me on Twitter at Show Notes Guy. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Phillip Swindall, PhillipSwindall. Or you can find me in Podcaster's Paradise or on the page Show Notes Guy in Facebook. You can search for Show Notes Guy. I'll be there as well. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's been a benefit to you. Not bad for a 30-minute span. I mean, it's 12:25 now. I would have had some question and answer, but we'll take care of that the next time we do this, because this was just a trial run. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, contact me at shownotesguy.com, and it's shownotes my email. Have a good day. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hope we interact later.